In this section, we're going to talk about the different types of conflict that can happen with voices. Most conflict with voices follows one of four basic patterns, which is where they either do damage by forcing your attention, they cause unhappiness by being mean or otherwise making you feel uneasy with your situation. For some people, their voices claim to have abilities, which they threaten can damage you or your loved ones. And lastly, a small group of people feel that their voices can give them urges and impulses, taking over parts of their body or mind. We'll cover the overall patterns of hostile voices and also some strategies for navigating the situation. Interestingly enough, there is a small risk to even telling you about the types of conflict with voices, especially in the medical model. As you learn about the different types of attacks, your voices can begin to behave in this pattern. This is similar to how medical model can ask you, are your voices threatening, and cause the voices to take on these character traits. Still, the benefits of preparing you for the different types of conflict that can happen outweigh the risks of your voices starting to attack in a new pattern. And if they do, you should have the tools for knowing how to react. So one of the biggest problems with hearing voices is how they can force your attention. Again, it's somewhat similar to being stuck in social media where you're trying to have a stream of consciousness, your own thoughts in your own feed, and different posts are popping up in all caps and bright colors, often about you or directly to you. It's very hard to ignore. When setting up a positive voice ecosystem, creating rules about your attention, such as that voices can never force it when you are within 10 feet of someone you care about or working on a project, could be the most important achievement in living a happy life with voices. As you try to maintain your attention and focus to the physical world around you, there are a few strategies that can help. For example, often the storylines with voices can feel very important. Finding ways to tell yourself that the physical world is even more important can help you to focus attention to that physical world. I will give you an example. In the telepathy model, or even in many spiritual models, the conversations that you have with voices may feel like they are coming up with great solutions on how to help humanity. They can have this very grandiose appeal with how much impact they are creating. In these models, however, of course, nothing actually gets done until somebody goes out and does it. Communicating on the solutions for the world does not change something until somebody goes out and makes those changes. If you think about it this way, even mundane physical chores actually achieve more for impacting Earth than very important conversations that can happen with your voices. By prioritizing the physical world, you will train your attention to not listen to your voices, but to actually pay attention to any people around you or any tasks that you have to complete, since these are what move time on Earth forward. Another important tool for navigating attention is simply to train good habits. This is one of the places where I really agree with the medical model. The more that you focus your attention out to the physical world, the more your mind will start to remember that this is how you like to pay attention. One great rule is that whenever you are within 10 feet of somebody that you care about, as mentioned earlier, always prioritize your attention to them or to any important tasks that you have to do. Remember that the people who know you best will be the first ones to notice if you are distracted or communicating with your voices when you are around them. With that said, completely ignoring your voices is often a risk in creating a hostile relationship or creating an escalation of conflict. If you train yourself to pay attention to the physical world and not to your voices, try to give them time later in the day to see what they wanted to say or to have meaningful conversations with them. The only exception to this advice is for people who really want to try to get rid of their voices entirely, in which case completely ignoring them gives you a chance at complete quiet in exchange for the risk of a much more hostile relationship. The last tool for navigating attention while hearing voices is a lot more controversial. Most people that believe their voices are external, meaning are not part of the medical model, are not from the subconscious, tend to go around living life and paying attention to other things in the physical world while still hearing voices and possibly having some strange beliefs. Still, think about the last 5 cars that you saw. What color were they? Just like you can't remember this, if your voices are considered to be part of the external world, but you learn how to ignore them and pay attention to the other parts of the physical world around you, you can become a master of your attention. This is of course controversial because believing that your voices are in the physical world, according to the medical model, can lead you to confusing beliefs. Hopefully the tools from the earlier chapter can help prevent any damage that can come from this choice. And besides, having a belief about the voices being one model or another is a personal choice, and the strategies of this work don't focus on convincing you one way or the other. Essentially, going on a hike and seeing a beautiful waterfall, which you believe might be a spirit, is better than staying at home trying to solve the problem with your voices. To stay grounded with your attention while hearing voices, try to share the stories that you have with your voices with physical people around you. By moving things that are happening from your voice storylines to the physical world storylines, you're a lot more likely to stay engaged with your attention to the people around you. Also, pay attention to the people that you care about. Don't drift from their stories, offer helpful advice, and stay involved in what is happening to them. Although the stories with voices can feel very grandiose and very important, remember that the people closest to you are the ones who count on you the most. If we cannot save those who we care about most deeply, then we should not pretend that we are saving the entire world. You may find that it is difficult to train your attention to the physical world. For example, the voices can keep interrupting, or giving you very important information that you feel you really have to respond to. Remember that you can always take communications digitally, writing emails when things are a bit more quiet in your storylines, or engaging with your community through activities that are easier. Lean on the people who care about you and who you care about, but also tell them how they can help. Overall, keeping your attention to the physical world will allow you to enjoy a life while hearing voices. It does not mean that you are ignoring the voices or trying to get rid of them. It just means that you are asking for both, a physical life and a life with voices. Another form of conflict with your voices is the result of damage to your happiness. Voices can be downright mean and say really nasty or even criminal things. The first recommendation is to remember that the voices do not reflect the core of your personality. The opposite, in fact. In the medical model, for example, if voices are coming from your subconscious and they're telling you to do criminal things, isn't that proof that you as the center avoid criminality, and that is why your voices are the ones telling you to do it? To clarify what I mean, if you wanted to do criminal things, those would be your thoughts, and the voices will be telling you not to. Remember very much that you know who you are as the center, separate from your voices, and that their comments in all models don't reflect your personality. In the medical model, there's bits of subconscious which everyone has coming through to the surface. In all other models, it's not you to begin with. So don't take what they say too personally. Voices, like people, are influenced by character traits, perspectives, agendas, emotions, cost-benefit analysis, and opportunities. Just like you would try to navigate relationships with other people, you can navigate the relationship with your voices so they will become less mean and become more positive. We'll get to additional strategies for doing this later on. But remember that however your voices behave, there probably are people out there with similar character traits. Finding peace with your voices can help you to find peace with the world as it is. And learning how to navigate relationships and influence the dynamics of the people that you talk to be more positive is a very valuable life skill. So this is not a waste of time to practice with your voices. Another common form of conflict with your voices is when they remind you of your past, especially in ways that bring up feelings of shame or bring up intense pain. Although it is easier said than done, in theory you could train your mind to remember more positive memories so that the past is a place of nostalgia and positivity. For those of you that have more serious reasons for why the past can cause pain, lean on support groups or professional help. There are a lot of people that can help guide you so that the voices do not have this power over you. Lastly, if you are feeling pain, you can actually activate happy moments from your childhood or from your recent life. and use that emotion to cheer yourself up in the present. Lastly, certain kinds of belief structures, especially ones that are overly doubtful of the good intentions of other people or have inconsistencies in them, can cause unhappiness. Use the tools from the chapter on sorting your beliefs and organizing a belief structure to help avoid this sort of pain. Altogether, life with voices can be what you want it to be. Even if your experience is very negative and your voices cause you unhappiness, you can influence the experience into a more positive one. When hearing voices, especially negative voices, it's okay to get worn down over time. This is an experience that happens every day, multiple times a day, for the voice hearing community. Lean on others and use the tools and strategies available to you to create a more positive voice experience. Regardless of what your experience with voices is now, it is possible to change the relationships and dynamics so that they become positive guides and friends, instead of hostilely attacking you and your happiness. Another common source of pain with voices is when they claim to have abilities and threaten to hurt you or your loved ones. Now, the voice hearing community is connected enough that we know that these are largely bluffs. Voices do not have the ability to influence your physical world. It takes a long time to believe this, and eventually you will have to test their claim of power. But until then, even the feeling that your loved ones are threatened can lead to significant unease and be a source of conflict with your voices. Also, for some people, when voices use abilities, it does influence the internal storyline and relationships that you have with them. This makes sense. In the medical model, if you believe that something will happen, it creates the character traits for that storyline progressing. In all other models, abilities can similarly influence the storylines that you have with your voices. Here are some common defense styles for when your voices threaten you with abilities. For a style called negate, consider if a voice throws a fire attack at you, threatening to burn down your house. Well, if you undo this attack with some water, or otherwise prevent it from going through, you have negated the ability. The idea of throwing abilities back and forth with your voice can seem very strange to people that don't have this experience, but getting rid of the feeling that there is a threat from your voice can bring back a lot of peace to your experience. The advantage of the negate style is that it does get rid of any attack from a hostile voice. The disadvantage is that it takes a lot of time and creativity. If a voice throws a lightning attack at you, how would you negate it? If a voice throws a water attack, how would you negate it? If a voice throws something completely outside of the elements, you always have to think about creative ways of what can prevent and undo an attack. The negate style is not particularly the most recommended style. A second defense style is called the outgenerate style. So for example, if a voice throws a fire attack at you, you can use any abilities that you feel that you have to make your house stand strong and be sturdy. You have not actually undone the voice's attack, you simply used your own abilities in a stronger way, leading to the outcome that you want. The benefits of the outgenerate style is that you get to really pick how the storyline with your voices or how their supposed abilities will play out. On the other hand, for the outgenerate style to work, you have to feel that you are stronger than your voices, that your abilities can overwrite what your voices have done. Also, it takes time and effort to think about what you want in each situation. Just like with the negate style, this back and forth can lead you to focusing on your hostile voices and ignoring the physical world around you. A third style is called the redirect style. If a hostile voice throws a fire attack at you, with redirect, you simply change who gets hit by the ability. For example, you can redirect a hostile voice's attack back at that voice. On the plus side, redirecting attacks back at your voices is a non-escalating form of conflict that can cause damage to them and persuade them not to attack you again. More likely, however, redirecting attacks just escalates conflict, with you and your voices essentially going into constant battle of abilities back and forth. Also, with redirect, the ability is still out there in your voice ecosystem and can again circle back to hit you or one of your voice allies. Possibly worst of all, in any model except for the medical model, there's a chance that you are causing damage to another being. The redirect style has its place and can be used occasionally, but it is still not the recommended style. The most important strategy is something called the define style. If a voice throws a fire attack at you, trying to burn you or your house, you can say, "Okay, I'm going to go to the kitchen and do some cooking." Technically, there now has been fire in your house, and part of it, the stove, did burn a little. By picking a physical world manifestation for your voice's abilities, you can get rid of the feeling of danger while still pushing your attention to the physical world and being productive while you're at it. Another benefit of the define style is that you will never lose by being weaker than your voice. You're using the voice's own momentum and just narrowing down the vagueness and inconsistency in their ability to choose how things play out in your life. It also does not take that much time or effort, because whatever the voice throws at you, that's the creative spark for what you want to do out in the physical world. The downside of the define style is that it does limit your choices a bit with how you act after a voice uses an ability against you. The very last style is called the convert style. For example, if a voice throws a fire attack at you, you can say, "Well, to me fire is kind of like passion, so I'm going to go play music, or I'm going to go participate in a sport, something that you're passionate about." The convert style is similar to the define style, but it gives you more freedom for how your voice's abilities will play out in the physical world or in your voice storylines. Compared to the define style, it does take some creativity and effort because you have to convert the abilities into choices that you want to make. Also, although you're using the voice's momentum, just like with the define style, converting attacks will not always work. Or to say it more clearly, converting an attack will not lead to a feeling that the threat is gone in all cases. For this reason, the recommendation is to become more skilled at the define style, but to be able to use the convert style where you feel you have good opportunities. This is a great way to pursue your own ambitions and motivations, and simply use all of the voice's hostile attacks as fuel for your own dreams. Lastly, when voices attack you, even with abilities, they tend to only attack you on topics that you are familiar with. In the medical model, your brain simply cannot light up to process an attack with a subject that you have no experience in. In other models, similarly, your brain being able to hear the attack with your own past experience is important for it going through. This creates a very large home field advantage when you fight against hostile voices. The strong recommendation is to develop your own skills within your life passions so that you can simultaneously live the physical world lifestyle that you want while getting stronger against any hostile voices. The last form of common attack from hostile voices is in the biology category, where people feel that voices give them urges and impulses, or take over parts of their body or mind. This happens to a very small portion of the voice hearing community, and even when it does happen, these urges and impulses make up a very small part of your decisions or motivations, so you still are largely yourself. With that said, knowing how these attacks happen and how to prevent them can lead to a better overall life with voices. One common way that biology attacks happen is when you freely give part of your mind to a voice. For example, a voice can promise you that it will fulfill your ambitions or protect you if you just give it a part of your brain. After this, your mind may not put up the same defense to allowing the voice to influence how you make choices. If you gave any part of your mind to your voices, feel free to take it back. Any deals you made, chances are your voice has broken their side of it. So your mind is yours. Don't give any part of it to your voices. Another form of biology attack that happens with some people is when they mislabel parts of themselves as the voice. For example, if you feel that you want the world to suffer pain or that a loved one would get hurt, you may feel ashamed or embarrassed, and may be tempted to blame the thought on a voice. For some people, labeling parts of what was themselves as a voice gives the voice more power to activate those thoughts and emotions in you moving forward. Worse, this is most often the thoughts and emotions that you would like to have complete control over. Practice forgiving yourself and understanding that everyone has these sorts of thoughts and emotions from time to time. Don't blur the line between yourself and your voices any time that you wish you had not thought of something or done something. The last common form of biology attack happens when you lose an argument to your voice. Specifically, imagine that a voice claims that it is an expert on trees, and you argue with it, and it defeats you in an argument about trees and nature. Your brain may remember losing and may not put up the same sort of defense when that voice tries to influence you on nature-related topics. This happens to a very small group of people, so if this is not your experience, feel free to just ignore your voices and to not engage with arguments with them to begin with. Alternatively, remember that you can say maybe as a way of dismissing an argument with a voice without validating it or creating hostility. Even acknowledging that your voices can create the sort of urges and impulses can cause some raised eyebrows in many circles. After all, in the medical model, voices to begin with are from your subconscious. Voice hearers, however, tend to know fairly clear lines between what is themselves and what is their voices, and feeling that your voices are influencing your thoughts and emotions can be a particularly painful type of conflict. On the whole, do not give any part of yourself away to your voices. Remember that voices that use biology attacks usually are influencers of your thoughts and emotions, rather than being able to control you. Also, this happens to a fairly small group of the voice hearing community, so do not panic whether you have this experience or not. Still, the bottom line recommendation for biology attacks is to never give any part of yourself up to the voices freely, not to label any part of yourself as a voice when you know that it is you, and to be careful about letting your voices guide your decisions just because they seem more knowledgeable on a given topic. In addition to understanding the types of attacks that come from voices, it's very important to understand why they might be attacking you. What I call Category 1 voices tend to attack people because of their own suffering. They might be angry, they might be hurt, and that's why they lash out and attack. With these voices, the best recommendation is to actually help them. Guide them to a place of peace and harmony, and they can become voice allies, protecting your positive voice ecosystem. Category 2 voices attack for some petty crime reasons. They're either trying to steal some information or they enjoy harassing you. With these voices, it can really help to have voice allies that defend you or to change their cost-benefit for attacking you. If a voice knows that it will face a punishment for attacking you, such as having its own secrets revealed, it will be less likely to do so. Category 3 voices tend to attack because they want to achieve their own agenda. They're motivated by cost-benefit, and for them, attacking you is a way to advance their goals for the ecosystem. With these voices, you really want to focus on cost-benefit, but in a different way. If you can connect their agenda to your own, and make it so that both agendas move forward together, Category 3 voices will become very powerful allies to defend your voice ecosystem. Category 4 voices are motivated by power hunger and are trying to take over your entire ecosystem. These voices tend to be the most dangerous out of hostile voices, and you should really focus on having voice allies to defend you, and also for really influencing the cost-benefit for why Category 4 voices attack or don't attack you. Lastly, Category 5 voices can attack you for many reasons, but they usually won't even acknowledge that they're attacking you. Instead, they tend to treat you as someone inside their own storyline. With Category 5 voices, it's important to have voice allies also from that storyline, to again influence the perspectives and the cost-benefit for attacking you. Now, although it's convenient to talk about different motivations for different voices, the truth is that hostile voices will often have mixed motivations and multiple reasons for why they attack. If you don't know why a hostile voice is attacking you, ask. You might be very surprised by what you find. Also, no matter why a voice is attacking you, be careful to not let hostile voices gain reputation in your ecosystem, and to recruit other voices to join in the attack. Most often, hostile voices will use threats, lies, or manipulation to influence other voices into joining into attacks. Not everyone will have hostile voices, and almost no one will have hostile voices from all categories of how and why they attack. In thinking about motivations, remember to recruit as many voice allies as possible. The best answer for hostile voices is to have voice allies who will defend you, even without your own time and effort. Another source of pain that can come with hearing voices is losing your sense of self. For this subsection, if you identify with a label of DID, the insights here might not apply, and for that I truly apologize. For others, here are some tools to help recenter yourself as separate from your voices. Voices work mostly through thoughts and perspectives, so concentrating on your emotions is a great way to relocate yourself. Even if your voices do have emotions, thinking about emotional memories from your past, from before you heard voices, such as childhood shame or childhood happiness, are great ways to relocate your center. Also, any unique things about you, such as your sense of smell, your taste, your style of dance, or your sense of humor, will often not be shared perfectly by your voices, and are another great way to separate the line between who you are and who your voices are. Altogether, if you have an issue keeping yourself separate from your voices, anything that is unique about you, and especially your memories from before you heard voices, are great ways to recenter. Lastly, some of the most painful damage that voices can cause actually goes to the people who care about you most. When those in your community see you struggling to pay attention, showing new behaviors that you can't explain, or otherwise losing your own happiness, remember that they are taking damage too. Share in activities like watching a movie if you have a hard time paying attention. Write emails or share social media posts if being together is difficult. Remember to also talk about your journey and your experiences so that you don't drift apart to having nothing to talk about or nothing in common. Lastly, be careful not to let the emotional frustration of hearing voices build up until you lash out against well-meaning people in your community. Honesty is the best policy with those who care about you. Tell them about your journey, your struggles, and the strategies you are using to get the lifestyle that you want. As we conclude this section, remember again to visit my website, lifewithvoices.com. You can also read about these strategies in more detail in my book, Life with Voices, A Guide for Harmony, which you can find on Amazon. And although these videos are free, there was a lot of work put into this. If you want to leave me a donation through lifewithvoices.com, I will really appreciate it, and it will allow me to keep helping the voice hearing community to develop the strategies to make the experience a better one.